Jeph Loeb's Batman The Long Halloween, a 1996 13-issue miniseries about a serial killer known as Holiday who goes on a murder rampage against a mafia crime family in Gotham City, is regarded as one of the best graphic novels of the Dark Knight for its redefining work on the Batman lore. But what seems to go under most people's radars is that even though The Long Halloween is advertised as a modern retelling of Bruce Wayne's early days as Batman, hiding through the facade of a detective thriller is a tragic love story between the characters of Harvey Dent and his wife Hilda. Throughout the story, we see sequences of Harvey Dent coming home to his wife Hilda and talking about his work, but as the story goes along, the reader sees the relationship between Harvey and Hilda slowly dwindle as Harvey becomes more obsessed with bringing down the crime lord Carmine Falcone. Every day, this Roman case, it's like it's eating him from the inside out, Hilda utters to Jim Gordon, trying to understand Harvey's changes. But sadly, this love story culminates with Harvey Dent falling down a path of lunacy and becoming the villain Two-Face. But in the tragic conclusion to the story after Batman stops Holiday, the ending panels have Harvey's wife reveal to the audience that she was a real Holiday all along, as she burns her costume and gadgets. Her reasoning behind committing the crimes was so that Harvey could spend more time with her if he did not have to focus so much on stopping the Mafia family, bringing this story to a bittersweet conclusion. Jeph Loeb is one of comic books' most influential writers, with his work on Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man serving as redefining moments for the characters. Loeb is primarily known for writing about superheroes in their early days, something he refers to as the Year One stories. And he loves writing in this era because it is a time we most relate to. The early days of Marvel, the Stan and Jack of it all. They were reinventing comics, and to touch the curtains of that is very exciting. Loeb enjoyed the origins of comic book superheroes because it was a time when his real-life heroes created the stories he grew up with and were revolutionizing the industry. And so when he grew up, Jeph wanted to pay homage to the simpler times of Kirby and Lee through his own stories. But although Loeb's work is associated with superhuman stories, his main focus is on the vulnerable human aspect of the character that makes them heroes. Jeph Loeb may write about modern retelling of superhero origin stories and their adventures, but his main preoccupation with his work, such as Daredevil Yellow and SpiderMan Blue, is the exploration of a tragic love story through the focus of the people under the mask. To understand how Jeph Loeb writes love, one must not look further than his career on the big screen and small screen. One of his most notable work was for the show Smallville, a TV show about the early days of Clark Kent as a teenager, figuring out his abilities and why he was sent to Earth before eventually becoming Superman. Up to this point, the show had difficulties of finding a way to explore Clark's character and relationships with everybody else. As A.V. Clove puts it, Smallville mostly turns in Freaks of the Week stories about kryptonite-influenced students trying to kill Clark and his pals. Smallville was more preoccupied showing off Clark's abilities than developing his morals and emotions. Jeph Loeb was commissioned to write episode 4 of season 2 titled Red. In the episode, Clark buys a class ring that has been made from a red kryptonite meteorite. Unlike the green kryptonite, which weakens him physically, the red kryptonite affects him emotionally, which produces a rebellious, angsty Clark Kent, believing he is better than everyone else and releasing all of his emotions that were bottling inside of him. Jeph Loeb chooses to abandon the villain of the week formula and instead has the episode focus on the character of Clark Kent. He does this by having the main conflict of the story be Clark under the influence of the red kryptonite and not a villain, which allows Loeb to deconstruct the good-natured Clark and turn him into an arrogant, selfish character, which reveals Clark's inner struggles and emotions. Although Red is mostly remembered as the episode that introduced the red kryptonite, Jeph Loeb's greatest contribution to the series was his ability to move the plot of Clark's love life forward through his clever use of writing love. Throughout the episode, we see Clark's new confidence expressed through the way he talks to Lana, his crush since season 1. The best example of how Loeb explores the characters through love is shown at the end of the episode, after Clark invited Lana on a date. But then he treats her badly because Lana didn't want to dance with him, so he moves on towards another girl. And after destroying the red kryptonite, Clark goes to Lana's horse stable to apologize for his behavior. Clark says that he didn't mean anything he said, and asks Lana if they could be friends again and return to the way things were, which prompts Lana to question Clark if his declaration of love was also false. Clark doesn't know how to answer, to which Lana says,
"You can't have it both ways. Either it was you or it wasn't."
Loeb's writing is very effective in this conversation because it shows how he understands the tension between characters and young love. Loeb explores Clark's willpower by putting him in an impossible situation where he desperately wants to tell Lana his secret to explain his arrogant behavior. But Clark decides not to take the easy route and makes a mature decision to not tell Lana about his secret in order to protect her from the truth. Knowing that the characters are teenagers, Loeb writes a scene in an awkward, tense situation in which Clark's good-natured and awkwardness is shown through his mannerisms and naivete, as he wants everything to go back to the way they were, which also symbolizes his desire to return to simpler times like in season 1. Loeb has Lana riding a horse in this scene to give her a more powerful stance than Clark, and Loeb frames the characters in a way where Clark, the Superman, is shown to be as a small individual compared with Lana, who is top of a horse. Loeb's visual storytelling works very effectively as Clark's metaphorical sense of power is removed from him and transferred to Lana's character. But the strongest point of the scene, being Lana's remark, penetrates the heart of many viewers by showing how nothing can ever be the same, pointing to a heavy shift for the future of the show. Having Lana reject Clark's apology just shows how the Man of Steel can be broken by something as simple as love, as the episode ends with Clark seeing the girl of his dreams drift away. Loeb's work on TV and movies shaped the way he writes comic books, and after a successful run with DC Comics, Jeph Loeb decided to make the jump to Marvel Comics, and was given the opportunity to choose any superhero of their roster and write a miniseries at any given time period in the superhero's career. Loeb looked upon reinventing characters by adding a fresh take to their origin stories. His first choice was Daredevil, and soon he began working on Daredevil Yellow, a 2002 6-issue miniseries about the early days of Matt Murdock, a lawyer by day and the man with no fear at night. Loeb chose Daredevil because, according to him in an interview, Daredevil was about the joy of being a hero. This is a time period in particular which Tim and I associated with him wearing the yellow costume. Loeb chose Daredevil because it reminded him about the fun of being a superhero, but just like Smallville and The Long Halloween, Loeb was not just going to tell a fun, reimagined origin story about Daredevil, but instead he was going to use it as a device to analyze Matt Murdock's character through a tragic love story. One of the most interesting aspects in Daredevil Yellow is the elements that Loeb decides to focus on. Instead of the traditional superhero origin story of man facing a tragedy and becoming a hero, Loeb situates the reader with the present-day Daredevil of the current comic book continuity and has him relive his early days of being Matt Murdock through his writing to his girlfriend Karen Page. But as the story goes along, something crucial is revealed. Matt is not writing letters to Karen. He's writing letters to the memory of Karen. Throughout the story, Loeb reveals that the character of Karen Page, someone we see in the comic book play an integral part in the story, is dead in the present. As to the reasoning behind this artistic choice, Loeb reveals in his interview, "There's very strong emotional resonance to working at the early parts of the career. I often point out that what made The Long Halloween work for us was a tragedy of Harvey Dent's life, was something the reader already knew. For longtime fans, they know that Karen Page dies, and having Matt write letters to the deceased Karen comes to no surprise, but it adds a different emotional layer to the experience. Looking at the simple moments that Matt and Karen share on the panels are made much more emotional, because the reader can appreciate the time they had together before Karen's demise, accompanied by Matt's reflections on the key moments where he began falling in love. Loeb plays this to his advantage, to analyze the character of Matt, utilizing the letters as a framing device to psychoanalyze Matt's emotional struggles through an organic matter that fits in the context of the story and adds a heartwarming impact to Matt's interactions with Karen. You named me the man without fear, but now I'm beginning to realize that my greatest fear is living in a world without you." Daredevil's comic book tagline has always been the man without fear, but it was mainly used just to sell comics. Loeb finds a way to add an emotional weight to the tagline by having Matt acknowledge that the man without fear is a nickname given to him by the love of his life. It takes a new significance that forever alters how Daredevil comics use the phrase, because now it serves a purpose of remembrance and pain. Loeb also deconstructs the idea that Daredevil is without fear, and shows that what truly scares him is not what may happen to him, but living in a world without the person he loves. Jeph Loeb finds ways to humanize one of Marvel's darkest characters by showing that even the man without fear is afraid of something. But Loeb also finds a way to utilize the letters as more than just a tool to have Matt express himself. He uses the letters as a form of therapy for Matt to cope with Karen's death and find peace with what happened. When I began writing to you, I felt as if I had lost something, but in the end, I like to think that I found something. Forgiveness. Loeb does not simply find a loophole for Matt to talk to the audience. He finds a way to bring this tragic chapter in his life to a bittersweet conclusion that reflects upon his own demons by finding his way back through the love that once was. With the success of Daredevil Yellow's thematic approach to a superhero origin story, Loeb's next collaboration with Marvel, SpiderMan Blue, a 2002 6-issue miniseries about Spider-Man's first encounter with Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane Watson, sees him embracing his approach to superhero storytelling and creating a narrative that solely focuses on love and tragedy. Taking a similar approach with Daredevil Yellow, the comic book has the present-day Peter Parker speaking to a recorder on Valentine's Day, making a recording for his deceased first love, Gwen Stacy. Loeb utilizes these recordings to analyze Peter's emotional struggle and takes an uncanny approach with the character by showing him at his most vulnerable state. I guess, when I try and sum up how I feel sometimes around this time of year, I feel blue. Loeb explores the depression of Peter Parker through an event that many comic book fans forgot it had a deeper impact in Peter's story. Loeb finds a way to give a more meaning to the character of Gwen by writing about how her death still has an effect on the present-day Peter. And something that Loeb does incredibly well in the story is finding a way of making the reader step into the shoes of Peter Parker through the recording boxes and the images. Unlike Daredevil Yellow, Loeb decides to toy with the new visual approach in SpiderMan Blue that creates a more immersive and emotional story. In his essay, Strategies of Narration of Jeph Loeb and Tim Sell's SpiderMan Blue, Derek Parker Royal writes, "The composition of the images within the panels, in essence, how we see things through Peter's perspective, complement the interiority of Loeb and Sell's text." Jeph Loeb's comic book is accompanied by the drawings that share his dialogue. Most of the comic book includes close-ups of characters to give off the sensation that the reader is viewing the world through Peter's eyes. This creates a more personal relationship between reader and character, as everything that Peter sees is displayed on the panels, accompanied by his thoughts, which create a more intimate moment as Peter's eyes guide the reader directly into Gwen, and staring at the eyes that stare back love to Peter. Loeb utilizes the moments between Peter and Gwen to also highlight what makes Peter the quintessential superhero. In issue 5, Peter is shown to be sick and has a fun interaction between Gwen and Mary Jane, who are trying to take care of him, but Peter spots a vulture, one of his enemies, causing chaos, and takes the responsibility of stopping him. Sometimes, I hate that with great power comes great responsibility. Other writers have used Spider-Man's mantra to highlight Spider-Man's unbreakable will, but Loeb utilizes it to show Peter's vulnerability and that deep down sometimes he wishes he could be normal. Loeb further humanizes the character of Spider-Man by showing that even him has doubts about being good. Sometimes Peter just wishes he could stay in bed, sick, being taken care of by the girl of his dreams. But he doesn't stay in bed, because he has a responsibility to use his powers for the good of mankind. So he gets up and fights. But Loeb, acting as fate, rewards Peter for all of his sacrifices. After defeating another villain, Kraven, Peter goes to his room and sleeps, but Gwen comes in and tells Peter that she loves him. In one page, Loeb escalates the tension between Peter and Gwen, closing their love story as they share a kiss, embracing each other with Peter's thoughts saying, "That's when you had me, Gwen Stacy. All of me." Jeph Loeb writes the melancholy scene as a quiet, sweet moment of two young people falling in love as they share their first kiss, which reminds the present-day Peter about the beauty of the things that once were, with Peter saying to the recorder, "A girl I knew with an incredible smile and so much good in her heart made me think, life can be great." Jeph Loeb has done an amazing job revolutionizing the 21st century with his uncanny approach to superhero storytelling. And although his stories will go down as some of the best comic books ever written for the superheroes, the theme of love throughout his stories will always be his greatest creation. Sure, many people might read The Long Halloween, Daredevil Yellow, SpiderMan Blue, and see Smallville as just another piece of lore in a bigger picture to satisfy their action needs. But I will always remember about these stories is Jeph Loeb's approach to expressing love that taught me to appreciate the small moments with the people I love, because one never knows when it will be their last.